I'm here at Partnerships in Clinical Trials Europe with five-time Olympic gold medalist Sir Steve Redgrave. Now, Steve, your talk today, you're going to be talking about your diagnosis of diabetes and how you cope with that. When were you first diagnosed and how did you first discover it?
It was just after the World Championships in 1997. Is that 3 years before the Sydney Olympics, almost to the day, and it was a bit of a shock. The normal process is that we have competing is that you tend to look at 4-year cycles. Everything revolves around the Olympic Games. And so people say, oh, that's a big commitment of trying to compete for the Olympic Games. But relatively, you make one decision that lasts for 4 years. And you have to try and stay with that. And so this was after the first year of that process, so 3 more years towards the Sydney Olympics. The Sydney Olympics was going to be my 5th Games. So I had competed at the highest level. I had won Olympic gold medals as a non-diabetic. And then being diagnosed as a diabetic is that, first of all, I thought my career was over. I thought that was it. My grandfather had diabetes. I didn't know him very well. I was very young. But his late 60s, early 70s, and didn't survive much longer than that. So somebody that I didn't really know very well, but knew that he had diabetes. Never related that I thought I would get the condition, but that's how it all came about.
And you say there was a moment that you thought you might not ever be able to compete again. Do you remember ever remembering a moment where you thought, no, I will be able to compete and I do want to win that 5th gold?
Probably when I was at my seeing my consultant for the first time, is that the way that I was diagnosed and treated would be the same way as most other people would be. The only difference is the process was probably a little bit quicker than the most process. So I came back from training for the first day of training. We trained 49 weeks a year. We'll train sort of 2, 3, sometimes 4 sessions in a day, 7 days a week for 49 weeks a year. We'll get a day off once every 3 weeks. So it's pretty intensive. But we have 3 weeks off after a World Championships before then we start getting back into it. So this was the first day of getting back into it. Went to Henley-on-Thames where we train. Did 2 medium sessions because it's not normally a killer first day back. And went home and felt quite thirsty. And so I drank a few litres of fluid and thinking something's not quite right here. It's not unusual to be thirsty after training, but not this much.
Yeah.
And my wife is the team doctor, as also as involved as the British Olympic team doctor. She was at work, so I rang her up and said that I've got this thirst. And when you're away on hot training camps, you have of urine dipsticks that you test every morning, and there's probably 6 or 7 different pads on these dipsticks. But why we're doing it is of testing the pH every morning. As a hindsight, did you drink enough fluid the previous day? But just over the years of doing this and sheer boredom, you get to know of what all the other pads are.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a sliding scale one. But most of them are negative and positive, and one of them's sugar within the urine. And I don't know why, but we had some of these kicking around the house. I did my own test. It came out positive. I didn't relate that to being diabetic. So I phoned my wife up. She said, I think you should go and make an appointment with your GP. So the following morning, I was able to get to see him. They did some blood tests. My blood sugar levels were through the roof, and he said you need to go off and see the specialist. I was able to see the specialist on that day. That's where my treatment is quite a little bit different to the average person in the UK. And during that time period, that's where I felt that that was it. That was my career over. I didn't know very much about diabetes. Diabetes hadn't been mentioned very much in that first consultation with my GP, but there was sort of alarm bells ringing in my head that was probably the case. And so about 6 hours later, went off to see the consultant at Wickham General Hospital. And I was with him for probably about 3 hours. and going through more testing of confirming it was diabetes, how then I was going to be put on to insulin, and that's how I was going to be treated for it. And I was thinking, well, at a certain stage, he's then going to say, your rowing career is over. That's it. That's you can't compete internationally.
Yeah.
And I was expecting that. And it wasn't a sort of shock to the system in those few hours of leaving my GP to going to see him, is that's the matter of fact felt, I think actually, you've been to 4 Olympics, you've won a gold medal at each one of them. That's not a bad career as an amateur sports person. And so when it came nearer the end of the consultation, is Ian Gannon, the guy that was looking after me, is that he said to me, he says, I don't see why not you can't compete in 3 years' time. And I wasn't expecting that. And he said, it will be a difficult path, but I'm prepared to try and help you on the road if that's what you want to do. I can understand if you don't want to do that. And that's probably the point where, even though it was very early on, literally hours of being diagnosed, is that I thought, well, that's not giving me an excuse to give up. He's saying that I possibly can do it. We'll give it a go. And I came up with almost a slogan at that point, that diabetes has to live with me, not me live with diabetes.
Yeah.
And that's the way I look at it, is that you can be model coddled, you can be put into a situation, you're a diabetic, you're not allowed to do this, this and this. I don't want to be a commercial airline pilot. I don't want to fight on the front line of the forces, which you're not allowed to do as diabetics. I'm not allowed to be a fireman, but that's not at my top of my list at the age that I was and am now. And so can I still compete as an international athlete? And Ian said there was no reason why I couldn't. So from his enthusiasm, it sort of spurred me on that that's what I was going to try and do.
And you, of course, then went on to win that 5th gold. And how does that rank against the others that you won?
I think each one is very special. And I'm a father of 3. And if you ask me of which is my favourite child out of the 3, is politically we're supposed to say, oh, they're all the same. But they all behave differently at different times. Different sort of a personality. And that's what the Olympics are. It's not about that that day that you race your final. It's not about that moment that you get the medal around your neck. It's the 4 years of preparation, hard sacrifice, hard graft, a lot of commitment. And so each one has its own of marks in its own unique way. And Sydney was probably the toughest one because of the challenges that I was coming across. But it was just part and parcel of it. So I can't say that was more special than the first one.
Yeah.
If I had my arm twisted, I'd probably say the first one was more special.
Yeah.
Because the first one is that you have the dream to become Olympic champion, and it's that dream becoming reality. The ones after that, all very special. But because you've done it once before, there's no reason why you can't do it again. Obviously, having diabetes and of the issues that you have to deal with to try and get to the level to be able to compete was tough, and it has its own challenges. But I've done it before, so why not do it again?